can we predict? How can we predict whether or not we're actually a good applicant? Does it come from, applying whenever our friends apply? Does it come from just saying, well, I'm a junior now or I'm a senior now. I think I'm ready to apply to PT school. Let me just go for it.
Turning dreams into reality.
Hey, what's up, y'all? How you doing? Hope you're having an absolutely amazing day. My name is Joseph Googie. I am a physical therapist. I am also one of the co-founders of Pre-PT Ground, where we help you get into physical therapy school without wasting time or money. So if that's what you're looking for, you're in the right place. And in today's training, I want to talk to you about how you can predict whether or not you're going to be a strong PT school applicant using these 4 steps. And a lot of students they might use 1 or 2 or maybe none of these 4 steps, but if you can start using these 4, I'm telling you right now, you're going to be well on your way to becoming an absolutely amazing applicant. And this is something that we have dealt with students that we have directly coached that had been rejected before and had struggled to get into PT school, students that had been rejected several years in a row. And then after applying this and obviously everything else that we teach, they were able to become strong applicants. So let's start having the conversation here. And then of course, if you find value in it, share this with a friend who you believe will value it. All right. So how can we predict? How can we predict whether or not we're actually a good applicant? Does it come from, applying whenever our friends apply? Does it come from just saying, well, I'm a junior now or I'm a senior now. I think I'm ready to apply to PT school. Let me just go for it. Let me just apply to the schools that are local. Let me just apply to the schools that are okay. Like that's nice. But what happens is if that's the way that we're approaching our application, we're not really targeting anything. We're not really focusing everything to match where we need to be. So let's talk about a few levels that we don't address too well as pre-PTs. And if you can start doing this for yourself, oh my goodness, the game is going to change for you. All right. So let's actually start from the top. It actually has nothing to do with the schools or anything like that yet. This first one is perspective. Right. So for those of y'all that are listening to this, like how many of you think about your application and become anxious? Like you're like, man, like every time I think about applying to PT school, I get very anxious. It's like, oh my goodness, like, am I going to be good enough? Like, am I going to qualify? Like, how's that going to work? Right. So let's actually talk about this part first, because this is something that a lot of us have. And what happens, and we've seen this over like several years, what happens is if we don't address this, you actually like freeze, right? So when you're too anxious, like when you're too stressed, when you're too kind of worried that things are gonna, turn out for the worst, then we actually go into kind of like freeze mode where we don't actually have the energy to do anything. So ask yourself, like, have you had like weeks or days where after being super, super stressed or anxious about your application process, you were like, man, like, I don't have it in me. So maybe you stay in bed longer. Maybe you do other activities that are not helping you get closer to being a PT, but they make you feel better, right? But you're kind of losing the focus and the momentum that you once had towards becoming a strong applicant, right? So in those moments, the only problem is this: is the fact that we're losing time. Right. So if I start to get to the point where I freeze and now it's like, oh my goodness, like I haven't done anything that's getting me closer to my application for the last week, then I just lost a week that I could have used to my advantage. So the first thing that you should ask yourself is, what's my perspective? Because if my perspective is that the worst possible scenario is about to happen, then you can predict that you're pretty much going in a direction that's not going to get you closer to an acceptance letter. But the cool thing is you can actually change that. Right now, don't get me wrong, because I've struggled with anxiety for a long time. So I know that it gets to the point where many times you actually sometimes even need help from somebody else. And so if that's you, then please go see somebody, right? But for many of us, it's a simple shift in what we're focusing on. So instead of focusing on the worst possible scenario, instead of focusing on, well, like, what if I apply and then I get rejected? What if I apply and it doesn't go well? What if I apply and I have to reapply next year? Well, what's going to happen is you're going to stagnate yourself so much that you won't actually be able to do the things that will actually help you get closer to becoming a strong applicant. So what happens is you end up like shortchanging yourself. So when you realize that you're actually in control of your perspective, you can actually start saying, what's the best possible scenario? Like, what's the best possible outcome? The best possible outcome is getting accepted into a program. The best possible outcome is me doing well on the GRE. Okay, what happens? Like notice what happens. Like, take a few moments as you're watching this, or as you're listening to this. Like take a few moments to ask yourself, what changes inside of you when you start focusing on the best possible outcome? Are you still just like, are you as low as you were before? Are you kind of starting to get excited about things? Do you start to anticipate things more? And the answer is yes, right? When we start focusing on the best possible scenario and we spend time every single day, whether you got to block off a few minutes every single day, that's up to you. But when we start spending time each day focusing on the best possible outcome, then that anxiety actually starts to shift to anticipation. Do you remember like the night before your birthday when you were a kid? Right? Like the night before your birthday, you're excited. The night before, Christmas morning, if you celebrate Christmas, right? Like you're excited because you're like, oh my goodness, something amazing is going to happen. Like for my birthday, my friends might come over for a party, or, for Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas, like presents and this and family and whatnot, maybe Thanksgiving, whatever that is for you. Remember that anticipation? That's what you want to start having. Like that's what you want to start having when it comes to all of the things that you're doing as an applicant. Now, when it comes to the GRE, now I'm like, okay, I have told myself that the best possible scenario is that I'm going to do well on the GRE. So I'm actually excited about putting in the work now. Now, when I'm focusing on the GRE, the hour that I'm spending or the 2 hours that I'm spending is actually going towards towards me passing the exam, right? I'm not spending that same hour freaking out. Because sometimes we're like, well, I study 2 hours a day, but how much of that time is actually you freaking out? So the first way you can predict is where your perspective is. If your perspective has been focusing on the worst possible scenario, then you can predict pretty accurately that your actions will also match that, and that will actually make you less of a qualified applicant. And it has nothing to do with you being good enough or whatnot. It has everything to do with the actions that you're not taking because you're frozen. All right, so I hope that makes sense. The second part is focusing on whether you focus on what's there or what you think is there. So what I mean by this point is being objective, right? So when you're an objective applicant, you're usually going to be pretty dang good because nothing really surprises you, right? So being objective with your numbers, your stats, being objective with the effort that you've actually put in, being true to, like being honest with yourself is probably a better word. Like being honest with yourself is like critical, right? If you're not taking the time to actually be honest with yourself, if you're not taking the time to actually pay attention to what's actually in front of you, paying attention to what's on paper, making sure that you're applying to schools that actually match that, like figuring out how to tailor yourself into the best possible applicant for the schools you're applying to because of what's in front of you. Like if you're not doing that, then you're also not setting yourself up for a good outcome. Right? So students that can predict positively that they're going to get into PT school are the ones that are super objective and are positive about it too, because they're not objective and using that against themselves. They're not saying, oh shoot, my numbers are not good. And they're saying, well, I guess I'm never going to be good enough. They're saying, oh shoot, like my numbers are not where they're supposed to be, or certain things on paper are not where they're supposed to be. So I need to do something about it. So where can I get help with that? Or do I need to retake a class, or what is it? And now they're actually in control of everything. Does that make sense? That's the second part. Y'all, if you're not doing that, then you're basically, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So make sure that you're actually taking ownership of all of these things. Number 3 is seeing whether or not you're taking the time to see everything you do from the perspective of the PT program. Right? So at the end of the day, who decides whether or not you're going to get accepted into PT school? The program, right? So if the program is the one that's going to decide whether or not you get accepted into PT school, then you need to actually take time to see things from their perspective, right? So if you're not, then we're basically shooting in the dark. Like if you're not, all you're doing is basically crossing your fingers and saying, I hope they think I'm a good applicant. If that's what you're doing, then you actually haven't done enough homework to figure them out. Like that's one of the, like when we coach students in our program, the accepted system, we're spending time teaching them how to do that. Because when you can predict, like no other pre-PTs are deciding whether or not you're getting into PT school. No other, teachers of yours from the past, no family members, no friends, none of those people are determining whether or not you'll get into PT school. So we got to change our focus to the people that are actually going to decide, which is the PT program. So if I have not spent enough time understanding them, and by them, I'm not talking about just in general, I'm talking about to the specific school that you're applying to or schools that you're applying to, understanding them so well that you can actually start to predict what they're going to see, what they're going to value. And if you don't know how to do that, shoot, we have a program that'll teach you that. Go to acceptedsystem.com. But I'm telling you right now, that is super, super critical because otherwise you're not able to predict whether or not you're going to get accepted. And chances are you're left guessing more than accurately doing the things that you need to. So that's the third thing. And then the last thing is whether, like, who you listen to. Who you listen to is a great way to predict whether or not you'll get into PT school. So if you're listening to people that have not done what you're trying to do, so people that have not been physical therapists or people that have not been able to struggle through a low GPA or whatever it is that you're struggling with, like people that have not been able to do what you're trying to do, if you're listening to those people that have not done it, you're going to, like, literally, if this is the path, like, you're going to start drifting over to the other side because they're telling you based off of, like, they're guiding you based off of their own experiences that actually don't match what you're doing. But if you can start shifting towards, like, talking to people and listening to students and, professors and people that have been on the path that you're on, then what you'll actually start noticing is that it shifts what you do, right? Like when you listen to people that have been where you're going, you're usually more motivated because they're showing you how to do it. When you're listening to people that have not done what you're trying to do, they're usually the first to tell you, hey, this ain't working out. Maybe consider doing something else. Maybe consider doing a different profession. And if you want to be a PT, that's not what you want to be hearing, right? And it creates these doubts. And then when we have doubts, we go back to point one, which is more anxiety. Now we're freezing. Y'all, like, it's not working towards, like, helping you become a strong applicant. So when we shift everything from the people that, don't necessarily, like, know the path that you're on, and they might have all the best intentions, but they've never been on this path, so they don't know how to guide you. So shift to finding people that have actually been on that path, whether it's PTs, whether it's students, whoever it is. Find them. And when you do, everything starts to work in your favor. If that's us, if it's your classmates, just find those people. And if you can do those 4 things, you will, like, honestly be very, very close to being able to predict whether or not you're a strong applicant or not. And if you're not doing the 4 things I just said, then you're already setting yourself up for a pretty guess-filled application process. And I don't want you to guess your way through anything. I want you to feel like you're in control of your application. So I hope that was helpful. If it was helpful, share this out with a friend. Be sure to like and subscribe as always. But I'm telling you right now, you can be in charge of it. And if you actually, like, y'all, we actually have a free training that you can go to that shows you how to take control of your entire application. Go to preptsecrets.com and we will make sure you are well taken care of there. And then afterwards, ask us any questions that you have. But we cannot wait to see you on the other side as a future doctor of physical therapy. So keep getting it, keep pushing hard, keep working hard, and we'll see you there. Have a good one. Bye.